You're watching Kenosha Community Television.
Welcome to the Hope Council's Impact Panel. If you do not already know me, my name is Cheryl Kataska. I'm the office manager, and I am also the Impact Panel coordinator. Last and most important, when you guys checked in, you received a half a sheet of paper and a survey. You will sign and date that half a sheet of paper. You guys keep the yellow portion, white portion comes back to us. That is the only thing that will show your attendance this evening, so make sure that you turn that in. There's also a survey that we handed you, if you guys could fill that out as well, and we'll have a box over there for you to turn that in. With that, I am going to turn it over to John, our first speaker tonight.
A couple of things here. If anybody has heard this story before, if you've been to the Impact Panel before and you've heard this story and you're back again, I'd like you to think about what it is that you missed. What did you miss the last time you heard the story? Because if you're back again, there's a piece you missed. I'm going to ask some rhetorical questions. A rhetorical question is one of those questions I'd like you to ask yourself. I don't need the answer. The person next to you doesn't need the answer. Only give yourself the answer. And the first rhetorical question I'm going to ask you is, why are you here? Why are you in this room this evening? I will give you a hint. It is not because you got a drunk driving. While that might be what perpetuated you getting here, there's another reason that you're here. So let's just put that on the side. We'll come back to that a little bit later. Let's just get into it. I need to go back into time. I need to go back into the year 2000. In the year 2000, I am married. I am raising a family of 4 kids. I owned a home, owned a business I started from scratch with a friend of mine. We grew to a fairly successful company. I went to work every day. I did the parent-teacher conferences. I went to church. I did some volunteer work. I thought everything in my life was flowing along just like it was supposed to. And then September 22nd of 2000 rolls along, and September 22nd of 2000 is a Friday, and I am going to go fishing. I really like to fish, and I owned a piece of property in Florence, Wisconsin with my business partner, and I'm going to go up to the cabin and go fishing. My wife didn't want to go, the kids didn't want to go, nobody wanted to go, so I'll go by myself. I've done this lots of times before. I took off work a half day early. I came home, packed up the boat, packed up the fishing gear, packed a bag full of clothes, packed a cooler full of beer, threw it in the back seat, and off I went. I got as far north as the rest stop just south of Green Bay on I-43. And I pulled into that rest stop to see where it was I was going to fish, because usually when I go up north, I drive halfway, I fish till dark, and then I drive the rest of the way. And I'm sitting in that rest stop, and I've got one of these big map books out, and I'm looking at it. I'm thinking, where am I going to go? Am I going to go to Calden Falls, or where am I going to go? And I said, you know what? Screw this. I threw the map in the back seat. I grabbed that cooler. I popped open a beer, and I drank it. And it went down really good, like they always did. And I had another, and I continued my trip drinking and driving along the way. This is not unusual for me. I stopped in a bar, spent a little time in the bar, got back out, hopped behind the wheel, continued my trip. I mean, I did what all good drunk drivers do. I said, nothing's ever happened, nothing's going to happen now. Oh, sure, I might be a little bit tipsy, but I'm fine, I can drive. Got behind the wheel, continued my trip. From that point on, I didn't have any more to drink. I get as far north as Wasaki. Just north of Wasaki, the road is flat. There are wide shoulders. It's dark, 8:30 at night, a little bit rainy, and I drift across the center line of the road, and I hit another car head on. The front left of my car hit the front left of that person's car. And I remember going, oh my God, what did I hit? I didn't know if I hit a deer or what I'd hit. I had my seatbelt on, the airbags go off, All the lights go out and the car and boat go down into the ditch. I climb out of the car to see what it was I hit and up the hill. And right where my car went off the road, there was nothing there. But I looked down to the south and there were some cars pulled off this side of the road. So I go back down, I look at the front of my car, and the whole front left corner is all smashed in. At that point, I knew I'm in a lot of trouble. I didn't hit a deer, I hit another car, and I've been drinking. Climb back up the hill, and some guy coming the other way had pulled over. He got me to sit down in the front seat of his car. I was just shaking like crazy. And then the rescue squad came right away. If anybody here this evening got their drunk driving ticket because somebody called you in as a drunk driver, if you had that burnt out taillight and the cops pulled you over, if that's what happened to you, I need you to do me a favor. And I really need you to do me this favor. When you go home tonight and you lay your head on the pillow, ask yourself this question: am I just a little bit grateful I got caught? Who would be grateful they got caught? Who would be glad that they got a drunk driving ticket, that you have to go to jail and pay fines and all the penalties and lose your license and all the embarrassment and all the stuff that goes with it? Who would be glad that they got caught? I wish I'd have gotten caught. The reason the rescue squad came right away is because there were people behind me. And in the police report, they said I was drifting back and forth across the road. And as soon as a crash happens, they call 911. It's not their fault that they didn't call me in as a drunk driver. It is not their responsibility. I am the drunk driver. I'm 100% responsible for what I did. There is no one to blame but me. I tell you, my life would be so different today. Other people's lives would be so different today if I got caught. So my question for you today, is your life different today because you got caught? The rescue squad guy's got me sitting on the shoulder of the road, and he's going to do his medical thing. He's got one of these boxes out with all this stuff, and he's getting ready to put this brace on my neck. And I kept telling him, I'm fine, I'm okay. I have a cut elbow and a bruised heel. That's all the more that's wrong. But he's going to do his medical thing, and he's putting this brace on my neck, and this woman comes up from the south where the other cars were. She's got to be in charge. Everybody's asking her questions. She comes up. He asked her, how's the person in the car? She said she's dead. That's the first time that I heard that I took the life of another human being. That's the first time I heard that I killed somebody. Sharon Warner was 34 years old. She was the mother of a little boy and a little girl. And at 8:30 on September 22nd, Sharon Warner died because of me, a drunk driver. I didn't give her a chance. You read the autopsy report, massive internal injuries. She didn't stand a chance. I heard those words go into my brain. I understood them, it registered. I knew what that meant, but I don't know what the words are to try and describe the feeling you have when you hear that you're responsible for killing somebody in a drunk driving crash. And after all these years, I've come to this conclusion that there are no words to try and describe that feeling. And they do their medical thing. They put me in a board, they strap me down, they throw me in the ambulance, and my wife pulls up on the crash seat. I live in Waterford, okay? This happened in Wasaki, 3.5 hours north. At the time, my wife drove school bus, and she didn't want to go up to the cabin that day. So after work, she decides, I'm going to run up to the cabin and spend the weekend with John. So after work, she hops in the car, north she goes. She comes upon the crash scene. At the exact moment they're loading me in the ambulance, she jumps out of her car, says, I think that's my husband. They slam the door, the ambulance takes off, and he literally chased that ambulance to Iron Mountain Hospital. I can't imagine what she was thinking about. You know, sometimes there's a lot of people that are affected by the things that we do. And sometimes we don't really know who they are. We don't know how far that ripple is going. One of the things I've been thinking about lately was the guy who worked at the gas station. I mean, I don't know if anybody here has ever worked at a convenience store gas station. Imagine this. You're working the night shift, and you're sitting there at the gas station just doing your thing, and this car comes screaming into the parking lot, slams on the brakes, skids to a stop at your door. This lady jumps out of her car, hysterically screaming at the top of her lungs, "Where's the hospital?" I can't imagine what that guy thought. They get me to the hospital, check me out, I'm fine. There was an officer dispatched to the hospital. I found out they did a blood draw, and I found out later what my BAC was. Mine was .14. What was yours? They gave me a ticket for drunk driving and said you could go. I don't know why they did that. I've given up asking that question. I said, how's the person in the other car? I mean, I heard that she was dead. I understood that. That registered. I knew what that meant. But they had to have checked a pulse wrong. Or they had to have gotten her back with those paddles or something. I mean, this just can't be true. And the officer doesn't know, so she goes out, calls on the radio, comes back in, says she's deceased. That feeling isn't going away. I said, well, who do we talk to about this? They gave me the name of the sergeant on duty next day. They gave me a ticket for first-time drunk driving, operating left to center, and said you could go. I don't know why they did that. I've given up asking that question, too. I just don't know. So I get the name of the sergeant on duty the next day. We leave, we go to our place in Florence, we wait the night out. Next morning, go to the Marinette County Sheriff's Department. Sergeant doesn't come on duty till 1 o'clock, so we just wait. He gets there at 1 o'clock. We wait and wait and wait. He finally shows up at 1 o'clock, and I say, I'm the person involved in the crash last night where the woman died. They didn't arrest me, and I don't know why, and quite frankly, I don't even know why I'm here. I just know that I need to be here. He takes me in the back room and he talks to me, and I am a lawyer's worst nightmare. I tell him everything. From the time I left home to the time of that crash, I told him absolutely everything. He arrested me, charged me with homicide by intoxicated use of motor vehicle, and puts me in jail. I've never been in jail my entire life, and here I am sitting in jail. This is Saturday afternoon. Monday afternoon, I get to see the judge, post bail, and then come home. And then I have to do one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do in my life. I have to tell those 4 kids of mine that I killed a woman drinking and driving. And the reason that that's so hard for me is because I am such a big hypocrite. I am the biggest hypocrite. You see, ever since my son turned 16 and he could drive, I said, don't drink and drive. You know, you ride with somebody, they had something to drink, call me, I'll come and get you. You drove, you had something to drink, call me, I'll come and get you. This whole time I've been preaching this whole time I've been drinking and driving. So what the hell is going on in my life? You know, sometimes we need people's love the most when we deserve it the least. And I didn't lose my family's love that day, but I did lose their trust. Trust, one of those simple words that we take for granted. I couldn't be trusted to do anything. How could I do this? I'm gaining that trust back from my family slowly and surely by what I do, not by what I say. I wonder. I'm looking at the faces staring back at me today, and I wonder. There's probably a couple of people in the room that got kids in their life. But here's what I don't know. Am I in the company of any other hypocrites? I went and saw my lawyer, and he said, I can't handle this, you need a criminal lawyer. So they sent me off to see a criminal lawyer. And he said, we need to get you into counseling. And I thought, great. I need some help trying to figure out how I'm going to live with this. I need some help to figure out how I'm going to hold my family together. I kid you not when I tell you this, I am a basket case. I am non-functional. The suicide thoughts have gone through my head. I am just non-functional. And they're going to get me help. And I thought, all right, great. So they send me to see this guy, and he evaluates me, and he sends me over to see that guy. He evaluates me. He sends me back to the first guy, and he says, go to group. I'm like, all right, what's group? Pulls out this sheet, and he says, I want you to go to at least 2 groups a week. I said, well, there's a lot of groups there. Can I go to more? He said, you can go to as many as you want, but you got to go to 2. All right, so I start going to group. I don't know if anybody here has ever been in group, but it's nothing more than a room with chairs around it and a discussion led by a counselor. I go to this first group, I take a chair in the corner, and people come in, the counselor dude comes in, they start talking. This guy over here, he's got 5 drunk drivings, and that guy's smoking some crack, and that guy's shooting some heroin, and these guys are smoking some pot, and 3 more drunk drivers over there, and a couple more over here. And then this one guy, this guy over here, he just said that he got his 3rd drunk driving while he's waiting to be sentenced on his 2nd. And I'm thinking to myself, the guy made a mistake. I mean, I think he sent me to the wrong room. And yes, alcohol, I killed a woman and alcohol was involved, but I need some help trying to figure out how to hold my life together, how to hold my family together. And all these people are just talking about drugs and alcohol. It took me about 2 or 3 groups before I figured out I was in the right place at the right time. I was able to figure out how I was going to live with this. I did that with the help of my wife, my pastor, God, and Sharon's family. This alcohol thing, that's a whole nother story I'd love to share with you sometime. Told my lawyer I will plead guilty to the charge. There's no one to blame but me. It is not Sharon's fault, the car's fault, the road's fault, it's nobody's fault but mine. I'm 100% responsible. You do your lawyer thing and make sure we follow procedure and minimize what you can minimize, but I'll plead guilty to this charge. And my lawyer told me what that meant to be a convicted felon, and the judge told me what that meant as he's pronouncing me a convicted felon. So I stand in front of you today being a convicted felon. The judge ordered a pre-sentence investigation. That's a report that's done by the probation and parole department, and they look into your life and they find out what kind of person you are, and they look into the victim's life and they find out how it's affected their family, and they make a sentencing recommendation to the judge. I knew about my side of the street, but I didn't know anything about Sharon, and there's one part of that report that I'll share with you. It was 2:30 in the morning. Knock on the door. Hello? Your daughter's been killed in a car crash? We're sorry. Goodbye. I mean, I'm sure there was a little bit more to it, but how much more can there be? I mean, really, folks, how much more can there be? And there they sit trying to figure out what to do because Sharon's daughter's sleeping overnight at Grandma and Grandpa's. And there in the next bedroom lay their granddaughter. And we got to figure out, how do we tell her her mother's dead? Do we wake her up now? Do we let her sleep? It'll be the last good night's sleep she gets. And they sat there for hours and hours at the kitchen table waiting for their granddaughter to wake up, the whole time knowing they're going to have to tell her her mother is dead. It had to be so hard for them to do that. Sentencing day came. I kissed my family goodbye, emptied my pockets, and went in to be sentenced. On sentencing day, I was able to apologize to that family. I was able to say, I'm sorry for killing your mom, your sister, your daughter. I'm sorry. Sometimes I'm sorry doesn't cut it. Sometimes I'm sorry isn't enough. That's one of the reasons why I'm here tonight. I promised that family I would try to do whatever I could to prevent this from happening to somebody else. And I can't do that by myself. I'm asking for some help here tonight, okay? I'm pleading with you guys for some help here tonight. I am begging you for some help tonight to try to prevent this from happening to somebody else. It doesn't have to happen. It's a preventable thing. I can take care of my side of the street, and I need your help. I sure hope I can find some people in the room tonight that'll help me with this. You know, I couldn't go to the funeral. I couldn't write them a letter or send Sharon's family a card. I have no contact with Sharon's family. But on sentencing day, I was able to stand up in front of them and say, I'm sorry for killing your mom, your sister, your daughter. And then the judge sentenced me. It's important to me that nobody misunderstand the sentence I got, because I think it was a pretty unusual sentence. The judge took the recommendation of the pre-sentence writer. I was sentenced to 6 years of prison with 4 years of extended supervision. That sentence was imposed and stayed, which means they apply the sentence and then put it on the side. I was then sentenced to 10 years of probation. As a condition of probation, I have to spend a year in jail. The first 6 months in straight time in Marinette. The next 6 months could be at a county closer to home with work release if I can find one that will take me. There are a lot of other things that go along with the sentence, but that was the gist of the sentence. I was on probation for 10 years. 9 years and 11 months go by, I screw up, I go to prison for 6 years. I don't know why the judge took that recommendation. There are people far smarter than I that can answer that question. I mean, I had no drunk drivings on my record, although I should have had many. I had no involvement with the law whatsoever, and maybe that allowed the judge to consider that recommendation. But I think there's one part that had some impact on the judge's decision, and that is Sharon's family. You see, Sharon's family told the pre-sentence writer, you tell the judge that whatever he does is okay with us because we forgive him for what it is he did. They forgave me for killing their mom, their sister, their daughter. They forgave me for that. Could you? If you got the knock on the door at 2:30 in the morning, could you forgive the person that killed your loved one? I don't know that I could do that. I know I would want to, and I would need to, and eventually I would. But could I do that? I don't know. I pray to God I don't ever have to find out. I sure as hell hope nobody in this room kills one of my kids, because I don't know what I would do. That is truly an extraordinary family. It give me the strength to stand up in front of you today, all these years, and tell this story. But you know what? That was a long time ago. That was in the year 2000. We are now in the year 2015, okay? In case you haven't figured it out, times are different. Times are a lot different. Most first-time drunk drivers who kill somebody are going to prison for somewhere around 5 to 10 years. That doesn't apply to any of us in the room, because we all have one already. So if you have one now and drink and drive and kill somebody, that's about 10 to 15 years. And if you have two now and drink and drive and kill somebody, you might as well forget it. You're not coming back. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do with the chance you've been given? When we're done here tonight, you get to walk out that door and you get to decide what it is you're going to do. You know, what path are you going to take? What decisions are you going to make? You got to think about that. You guys have been given an opportunity tonight. I hope you embrace it. I really hope you do. You don't want to be on this side. You just don't. You know, the damage I caused was extreme. It's just extremely big. You know, you ever drop a rock in the water? When you drop a rock, ripples go out, and they go out all the way around. I dropped a really big rock. The ripples at the center are huge. Sharon's family and friends and acquaintances, my family, our friends and acquaintances. But did you ever, really pay attention to a ripple? Keeps going out, gets a little smaller, but it keeps getting bigger. So tonight, everybody in this room, you are all part of my damage, you are part of my ripple. And I need you to do a couple of things for me, okay? I would really and truly like you to pay attention to what you think about. Because the thoughts that we have upstairs here, they will turn into the words that you speak. And what happens to the words that we speak? Words that we speak turn into our actions. And we all know what happens to an action. We do it over and over again. It develops a habit, and your habits will determine your character. Your character will define your destiny. And what's your destiny? Where are you on that road of life? What path are you going down? Are you going down over here and you need to stop and just make a lane change? Are you going down over here and you need to get on a whole new road? Why are you here today? You know, it's like that movie Castaway. At the end of the movie, Tom Hanks is standing there in the center of the road. What path? What path are we going to go down? What path are you going to go down? What changes are you going to make? Because if you don't make a change, you'll be back again. So we really ought to think about that. We really ought to think about what we're going to do. You know, that day I decided to drink. That day I decided to drive. And a woman paid for that choice with her life. And there are 2 kids in this world who have grown up without a mom because of me. 2 kids in this world who have no mom for birthdays, holidays, graduations. 2 kids who've grown up without a mom because of what I did. I've got to live with that. I've been able to figure out how to make peace with it, but it doesn't go away. It's with me every day of my life. sure as hell hope nobody here has to do the same thing. Because we don't all come back. Some of us go over the deep end. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do when you walk out the door? I keep asking that question because I really want you to think about that. I want you to think about the change. I'm also looking for some volunteers here tonight. I'm looking for some volunteers. And here's what I need out of some volunteers. You don't have to stand up. You don't have to raise your hand. You don't even need to tell me that you're going to be a volunteer. I just want you to be one of my volunteers. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to never get behind the wheel if you've consumed alcohol. And I mean any alcohol. And yes, I said any. And here's why I say any. How many drinks can you have before you're at a .08? 1? 2? Depends if you're male, female, body weight. Is your buddy working at the bar and mix them strong? If you're drinking a Long Island iced tea, you just drank a 6-pack. So how many, I'll bet if we did a little survey, how many people were as high of a BAC as they thought? No, everybody's, no, I never thought it was that high. Nobody gets a drunk driving at .08. I think the average of .17. So can we tell that we're at a .08? No. So what do? We keep drinking, and all of a sudden now here we're like a 1.5, and we're buzzed, and we're feeling it. So what do? We roll down the windows, we're gonna take the back roads home, right? Or do we keep drinking, and all of a sudden we're down here at .25, and you are so drunk that it is impossible to make a decision. It doesn't matter if you're here or if you're over there. We're all on the line. We're all on the line. And if you drink and you drive, bad things are going to happen to a lot of people, least of all you. So I'm going to ask you to not get behind the wheel if you've consumed any alcohol. And if you find that hard, then I'd like you to take a look at yourself and what's going on. You know, take that look at yourself of why are you here? Why are you here in this room tonight? Did you get your first drunk driving? And to be one of the few who aren't back in this room again? Or maybe you got your second. You were good for like 5 years and didn't drink and drive, and now you got number 2. Is that why you're here? Or maybe you got number 3 or 4. It's a pretty regular occurrence, right? That's why you're in the room today, right? Let's just take that. Push that off to the side. Why are you here? Why are you in this room today? You guys went to the Hope Council. You went and had the driver's safety plan assessment done, and they checked the box impact panel, right? You've got to be here to get your driver's license back. That's why you're here. Let's just take that, push that off to the side. Now what I want to know, why are you really here? Really? What is going on in your life that's causing you to be in this room tonight? Here comes the hard part. I ask you to be honest with yourself. Honest, another one of those real simple words that we take for granted. I don't want you to be honest for mom, dad, husband, or wife. I don't want you to be honest for a counselor or a lawyer or a judge or any of those people. I only want you to be honest with yourself, for yourself, in your heart, and in your soul. What's causing you to be in this room tonight? I had a little trouble with the honesty part. I was really good at holding the mirror up and telling you who I saw. I told you this when I started. I go to work every day, bring home a paycheck, pay my bills, go to church, do volunteer work, stuff with the kids, blah, 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 blah. That's what I saw when I looked at the mirror. Here's what I found out. I was looking at the edges of the mirror. I wasn't looking at the middle of the mirror. And when I stopped and took a look at the middle of the mirror, and I saw who was staring back at me, I had to make a decision about what I'm going to do. That wasn't easy. It's hard to look at the middle of the mirror. It wasn't easy for me, and I don't think it'll be easy for you. But I'm going to ask you to do that. Take a look at the mirror and who's staring back at you and what are you going to do about it. I'll borrow you my mirror if you want to take a look and see who's staring back at you. You know, so what does he really want out of me today? The guy keeps bouncing all over the place. What does he really want? I want you to not get behind the wheel if you've consumed any alcohol. And yes, back to the any alcohol. You know, if you want to drink, I don't care. Go, you want to drink, go out and get drunk. I don't care. That's not what this is about. This is about driving and drinking. That's what I care about. Some of us may have a problem with alcohol, some may not. I don't know. I'm not here to judge anybody. I just don't want you to get behind the wheel if you consumed any alcohol. And we always hear this, don't drink and drive, don't drink and drive. Okay, I agree with that, but I got a better one. Let's not drive and then drink, okay? Let's not drive and then drink. I've always heard that if you say something 3 times, it sticks better, so here we go. Let's not drive and then drink. We went back to the day that you got your drunk driving ticket. If you didn't drive to where you drank, would you have still gotten the ticket? For most people, the answer is no. There are some of us who go out and hit it pretty hard at night, close up the bar, get up for work at 6 in the morning, get your drunk driving ticket on the way to work, okay? This won't work for you. You're still drunk when you wake up. It takes time to sober up, but we don't feel that piece of it. So for that group of people, this won't work. But for the rest of us, if we don't drive to wherever we're going, we're not going to drive back because we already have a ride in place. And we're making that decision to put that ride in place before we're under the influence of any alcohol. I really don't believe anybody in this room wanted to go out and get a drunk driving ticket. I really believe that. We're all good people that made a mistake. So we get the opportunity now to fix it. We get the opportunity to make a change. Make a little difference in our life. So what's the difference between you and I? What's the only difference between you and I, folks? I got it. Here it is, right here. This is the difference between you and me. Because if I'm that much more on my side of the road, I miss sharing, I go in a ditch, I get a drunk driving ticket, I have to come to one of these impact panels, and I'm sitting out there in the audience going, when is this guy going to shut up so I can go home? That is the only difference between us, folks. And why do we drink and drive? Why do we drink and drive? I got the answer to that one too. You're not going to like it because I didn't like it. And I got to be careful about this, the way I say this, because my wife says, John, you're going to lose people when you say it that way, so don't be so mean. All right. I drink and I drive because I'm a selfish son of a bitch. That's why I drink and drive. Are you? Is it similar for you? I mean, who's at the top of John's pecking order? John is doing what John wants to do when John wants to do it. Who's at the top of your pecking order? Are you doing what you want to do when you want to do it? So I'm going to ask you to think about what's happening. I'm going to ask you to think about making a change in your life. I'm going to ask you to think about who's affected by what you're doing. Who are those people that are not in this room today? There are people outside these walls that are affected by what we're doing. And I'll bet you don't know it. I'll bet you don't. I'll bet you think you might, but I'll bet you really don't. And here's an example. Okay? I'm 6 years into probation, 6 or 7, something like that, I don't even remember. My probation agent says to me, I'm going to discharge you early. Fill out this piece of paper, send it in to me once a month, I'll call you when I need you. I come home and I tell my wife, hey honey, they're going to discharge me early. Oh cool, that's great. So I fill out this paper, I'm sending it in every month, and I'm like, is that what probation's like? I do this the rest of my life. Every month I fill out this thing and I send it in, right? One day the phone rings. It's my probation agent. She says, I haven't seen you in a while. I need to see you. It's been quite a while. She said, yeah, a couple of months. I said, it's been 14 months. Oh my God, you got to get in here right now. And she lost me. I was filling out the paper, so she had contact with me every month, but she lost me for the visit. So, all right, I'll be there tomorrow. I go there, and she says to me, oh, that's right, I was going to discharge you early. I did the paperwork. I gave it to my supervisor, and they said, no way. I said, no way in heck are we going to discharge somebody early who has a homicide. Yeah, he qualifies for it. He's eligible for it. He should have it, but we're not giving it to him. I'm like, okay, no big deal. It's just probation is easy. Hardest part about probation, trip permit in order to go to Bass Pro. That's the most difficult thing for me, okay? So I come home, and I tell my wife they're not gonna discharge me. I gotta finish out the probation. And she starts to cry. And she's crying. And she's crying, and she's crying, and she's crying. And I'm like, honey, it'll be okay. Just a few more years, it's no big deal. And she's crying, and she's crying, and she's crying. And I cannot figure out what's going on. Here's what's going on. My wife is living my sentence. Okay? I have a stayed and imposed sentence. 9 years and 11 months go by, I screw up, I go to prison for 6 years and leave her holding the bag again. Now at this point in my life, I've got a lot of checks and balances, I'm feeling pretty good about myself, things are going quite well, but does she know that? Does she understand that? She is living my sentence and I don't know it. Who's outside these walls today that's living your sentence and you don't know it? Who's laying there in the bedroom at midnight, wide awake? Oh, car's in the driveway. Ka-doom. Oh, the door's closed. House door opens. All right, they're home safe. Who's living your sentence that you don't know about? So I'm going to ask you to think about other people in your life. I'm going to ask you to make a change, not get behind the wheel. If you've consumed any alcohol, be one of my volunteers tonight. Would you please? Would you please consider doing that? I'll leave you with this last thought. Can you be a smart person and can you learn from your mistakes? Or can you be a wise person and learn from the mistakes of others? Thanks for listening.
And it's funny because before John even said anything about it, I wrote down selfish. Because I'm selfish. I always do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it. But just to start out, couple things I want to talk about are choices and consequences. First off, a driver's license is a privilege. I think there's a sense of entitlement when it comes to a driver's license. It's like, why do I have to go through this to get my license back? Especially for first-time offenders. And I'm going to assume most of you are, although I don't know. I really shouldn't make any assumptions, and I'm not making any judgments. It's really important to me to share this with you. I was thinking a lot about jail while I was sitting here. But first of all, some of the choices that I've made, I'm so glad to have a driver's license these days, let me tell you. I do feel grateful. But some of the choices I've made have led me to, I think when you get a DUI, you spend a minimal of a good few hours in a holding cell. So everyone got a taste of what jail is like, and how clean it is, and how wonderful it is, and how degrading it is, the whole process. So we've all been through that degradation of being fingerprinted, of being arrested. That whole thing, that is a consequence of a choice you made to get behind the wheel intoxicated. Now, I don't know if there's anyone in this room who got OWIs or DUIs. To me, I'm going to generalize it all and talk about DUIs and just driving impaired. Like John said, our thoughts, which when you're selfish like me, our thoughts lead to our choices. Choices, I'm going to go do this. They lead to our actions. And our actions are what lead to the consequences and the ripple effect. So let me just talk about some of my choices. I heard John talk about, being amazed by these people in there with 3 DUIs. Well, I had 5 DUIs. Over the course of about 20 years, every few years, whether I needed it or not, I decided I needed a DUI, apparently. I went to prison. I went to prison for a year and a half, and I was on probation for 2 years. With 5 DUIs, I've been away from my family a total of about 2.5 years, and I still consider myself lucky, although my daughters are only 22 and 20. So when you go in percentages, how long you've been away from your kids and your family, it's pretty significant. They were 14 and 16 when I went to prison, and I will never know what that did to them. I will never know. I remember my 5th DUI, vaguely, driving on the wrong side of Highway 50 and thinking, aftermath, thinking, my kids drive now. I don't know what happened, but I haven't gotten a DUI. I don't drink. It's a choice, because when I drink, I just gotta drive. That's me, though, personally. It's the only way I can ensure I don't go back to prison. However, the first DUI, I think just got fined. It was a while ago. Second DUI, I don't know, probation. Third DUI, 60 days, which turned out to be 37, and I was like freaking out. This is horrible. Jail? Jail is horrible. Jail sucks. 4th DUI was 10 months in the county, and man, I thought I would never survive that. But every single time I sat in jail, something inside me just knew that it wasn't going to be the last time. I really liked to drink, and like I said, when I drink, I gotta drive. That's me personally. I'm not making any assumptions here, but the 5th led to prison. And now, the 4th leads to prison. And the first, a young man that is a very good friend of mine, just got his first DUI, and so we looked it up, and among other things, just the DUI without any hurting anyone is a year ignition interlock, which probably someone should have given me one of those, but for some reason I escaped probation. I escaped the ignition interlock, but I would have gotten around all of it because I am a selfish person. And it is a choice. Some of the choices I've made. I remember the judge said to me on the 3rd DUI, you know, Miss Krasl, if you drink, you don't have to drive. What a concept, huh? I was always a pre-drinker too, you know. I'd have a beer before or whatever. I really liked beer. I'd have a beer before or bring one with. It wasn't uncommon for me to have beers in the car on the way to get more or what have you. Choices. Oh gosh. Most of my choices revolved around alcohol. Like, oh God, an open bar at a wedding was like heaven. And like Ron's place, oh man, you know, Long Island iced teas. You know, it was like the booze came first. So if things like that are occurring in your head, like, you know, who's got the best booze or who makes the strongest drinks, that might be a little thinking, you know, it might be something you want to think about. Again, I'm just sharing my choices, and I'm just sharing my consequences. Some of the consequences were missing my oldest daughter's 18th birthday. I think that's significant because I will never know what that did to her. You know, an award in the talent contest. My youngest daughter got the highest musical award you can achieve. Things like that, consequences. What did that do to her? Maybe she thinks she doesn't matter. The fact was that my choices were drinking before my own children and family. And for some reason, I've been married for 23 years, and I'm not sure how. Maybe 24 now. At least 3 of my DUIs were from Collins. One lady followed me all the way on a really rainy, crappy day from like what used to be L&M Butchers, all the way out to Twin Lakes where I live. And my husband arrived just as the cops were arriving, so I went in a ditch like just a mile from home. So she was pretty serious. I've had my kids in my car when I've been drinking or when I've had drinks. Choice. Could have led to some major consequences. Being in prison, I was locked up with someone who had shook her baby to death, and she had been there for like 9 years. And I thought I was better, but we were all wearing the same green uniform. And I was the one spending more time in SEG because I was making bad choices even in jail and prison. I just couldn't follow the rules. So that tells me something about myself. SEG sucks worse. Bad choices. My pre-sentence investigation, I was so totally honest with her. I believed I deserved prison. It was something finally kicked in, like with me, like responsibility. She wanted 3 years in and 3 years out. That's what I got for brutal honesty. That's what I was thinking at the time. The judge said, but then I got real serious about not drinking. Like, man, I can't drink and drive anymore. So, and I just love to drive. So I realized that about myself. And when I went in, the judge took everything into consideration and gave me 1.5 years in and 2 years out. So I still had an attitude issue. I still wanted what I wanted when I wanted it. So there were consequences for that. Getting treated like dirt. Knowing all the guards' names, that is really pathetic. Consequences. So loss of a license for about 4 years and actually not driving during that time, getting rides places, making good choices. No driving without a permit or insurance. Good choice. Good choice. I got insurance now, but boy, is it expensive. Good choice. Part of the consequence. So some of them are consequences, and some of them come from good choices. But it's still paying the consequences. The trust thing. I came back and when I got out of prison, I was, trying to repair some damage, but I realized that the only way to really do that was to illustrate by example. And so I tried very hard to do that. And I've gotten trust back, but like my oldest daughter said, we can have a relationship, but it's different now, Mom. So I was grateful to be there for events. I used to not go to family events. I lost a lot of family with the choices I made. And it's coming back because of good choices. We can all make good choices. Not drinking and driving. It sounds so simple. But I'm telling you, it's up to you. It's all up to you. My mom died when I was in prison. I wasn't able to go to the funeral. I actually resolved it within myself by considering it part of the consequence. Life goes on when you go to jail, you go to prison, your kids grow. Sometimes your mates get tired of doing all the work. Sometimes your kids decide to do the same things you do. That's why being a good example is so important. Again, we don't all have kids. Some of us are kids. I see some young folks in the audience, and I tell you, I should have got my first DUI when I was 17, and I wiped out a semi with a Mustang. My first car, highly intoxicated. I don't even know if they did a blood draw. My brother was a deputy sheriff, and I should have gotten my first DUI when I was 17. If I wouldn't have been intoxicated, I probably would have been killed. However, I should have gotten a DUI. I don't know why I chose to stop drinking and driving when I did, but I'm so glad that I don't drink anymore, because then I won't drive, and prison won't happen again, and I don't even remember the guards' names anymore, which I was pretty sure I would. Life is good now. Life is better. I'm getting trust back, and I'm grateful for all the things I have. But please try to remember that a driver's license is definitely a privilege. And it's not something you're just given because you're of age, because you've driven so long without a ticket. You can always lose your license. And the possibility of hurting someone, I don't know when that jolted. Probably when I was going on the wrong side of Highway 50, but there's always that possibility. You blink, and someone could be gone. Or yourself. Do you want to leave that for your children or your family? Do you want to leave that legacy? I don't think so. I just wanted to share that stuff with you. Just before I went to prison and I was going through my my Hope Council assessment, I had completed all the requirements, and I asked if I could please be on this panel. So I don't know if it made any difference to any of you, but just think about it, and like they say, make good choices. Think about what you're doing. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kathy, and I would like to introduce my kids, Jake and Lauren. And these are some of the favorite pictures that will be playing behind me throughout the next couple minutes as I tell you my story and share what the impact was to me on that crazy day 13 years ago on January 25th, 2002, when my world was changed forever. I don't know what I'm going to say tonight that will make a difference to you, similar to Maria, similar to John's message. But I'm just going to share my story, and I hope that you can find some pieces to take with you. Our children, Jake would have been 5 in 2 days, and our daughter, Lauren, was 5 months, was killed by Wallace Stenzel. He was 79 when he crossed the line, and he made a mistake. His blood alcohol was just 0.10. It was just over the legal limit, and he had 2 drinks, but his 2 drinks cost Jake and Lauren their lives. Mr. Stenzel was able to walk away from the crash with minor bumps and bruises. On January 2nd, 2003, he pleaded no contest to 2 felony counts of homicide by intoxicated use of a motor vehicle, and he was sentenced to 8 years in prison, and he was released in 2011. I know people make mistakes, but Mr. Stenzel's mistake cost Jake and Lauren their lives, and I'm sorry it doesn't bring them back. So how do I deal with it today? What is the impact? How do I go on? What do I do? I can tell you that the impact never ends. You may get over one thing, and you approach another thing. When people ask me, after I'm done speaking, if it's later tonight or tomorrow, how did your talk go? And I'm like, well, I had to relive the worst day of my life in hopes that it would help someone else. Not to be so morbid, but I'm sharing my story with hopes that it will find some piece that would resonate and make an impact. The impact to my family is vast. It goes from obviously the day of to now to who knows what's going to happen in the future. And I can't take anything else for granted, not anymore. You think, like you said, you're going along and life is pretty joyful and you're blessed, and it can change in a second. Of course, not a day goes by that I don't think of Jake and Lauren. I have their memories. I have their pictures. These are some of them. Sometimes it's joyful. Sometimes it's sad. I just don't know what would their possibilities be. Jake was this great old soul, and he was loving and kind, and Lauren was 6 months. And their future was wiped out in a flash, just because someone made a mistake. After the crash, I was on medication, trying to get through the loss, and in therapy for years, and trying to figure out how to live with this black hole. I think the emptiness is going to be there forever. I don't think that's ever going to go away. But through my faith in God and my support of my family and friends, I've been able to figure out what this new normal is going to look like. I don't think anyone ever gets over the loss. They have to just work around it. There are all kinds of triggers that happen. Today would be one of them. John's telling his story, and I can just relive the story like it was yesterday, my situation. Some are positive, some are negative. One negative would be the site of the crash. The crash happened on I-43. I was coming southbound, so I drive up that stretch to go visit my grandmother often. And when I'm in that area, I'm taken right back there. Hopefully I'm not driving and I can focus, but sometimes I can't. And I just wonder, what would have happened if Mr. Stendel made a different choice. The barriers that are on I-43 starting at Brown Deer Road, running up past Cedarburg or Grafton, were erected in memory of Jake and Lauren right after the crash. They passed it pretty quickly, and they were put up there. There have been subsequent crashes. People have crossed over and gone under, but I believe it has saved many lives in the process. So as I drive that stretch, I wonder, what if Mr. Stendel just would have not had any drinks, okay? What if he would have just stayed in his lane? What if I would have swerved the other way? What if I would have caused another crash? There's thousands and thousands of what-ifs that I go through, and of course, I don't have any answers. Of course, there are tears. Some tears are happy, some tears are sad. You never know when it's going to hit you. You hear a song, you see another child, you see anything that can pop into your head, and there's no preparation. You try to just work through it. Jake and Lauren are buried at a cemetery just a few blocks from our home, and for the first few months, I would go to the cemetery every night to say goodnight to them. Some people thought that was a little crazy, but if you have kids and all of a sudden they're taken away, I don't know what you would do. Would you not tuck them in? That's all I knew how to do. With spring coming, we'll go there and plant flowers, and we'll go there and water them every day and make sure that they have a clean and nice resting place. And again, just remember the happy times that we had. We also celebrate their birthdays. We imagine what they would look like. We imagine them at that time. We sing happy birthday. We put balloons on their grave for Jake's birthday. We have tacos, one hard and one soft, just like he would have had 2 days before he would have died, would have been his birthday, and we're planning on having tacos. We also adopted a highway in their name. In fact, this Saturday we're cleaning up Highway 38 in Oak Creek to remember them. We clean up the highway, and again, just keep their memory alive. We also have a anniversary around the crash, just to remember how precious life is. We remember Jake and Lauren, but we also remember, obviously, those that have gone the year before. And I always ask myself, why? Why them? Why couldn't I save them? What did I do wrong? And I still don't have any answers. The impact always isn't negative. As John talked about the ripple and Maria talked about the ripple, our case was pretty public. People heard it on the news, they read it in the newspaper, and it just reached all these people. And not knowing who's on the other side of the door, as John alluded to, I have no idea. But there's this one woman who reached out to the news station and asked for a picture of Jake and Lauren, and asked me if it was okay if I gave them a picture. And at the time, I was pretty raw and rigid and, kind of cynical, and I'm not sure if I want to give them a picture. And my husband said, just, give them the picture. I mean, hopefully they'll do something positive with it. And they did. About 2 weeks later, I received in the mail a gold pendant with Jake and Lauren's picture etched on that. and was shocked. I mean, it was very beautiful. I couldn't believe that this woman had took the time to get that created. But the other thing that she did is she wrote a poem. She was so touched, moved, mad, angry, upset at the loss of Jake and Lauren. I think because she had kids the same age, and she felt compelled to write a poem, and I want to share that poem with you right now. It's titled, "No Greater Gift, No Greater Loss." The start of new life marks the beginning for others who realized we weren't living before we were mothers. That warm rush of energy, intoxicating joy, with that first and every smile from that little girl or boy. We thank God every day for this wonderful untold, a perfect little being. We know He broke the mold. There's no greater gift, there's no stronger love than our beautiful child straight from God above. With such great love soon comes overwhelming fear. Will we ever get to keep them now that He's here? We ask ourselves, why would God ever take away that generous gift He sent on that happiest day? We try our best to have faith in God's grace, that day in and day out we'll see our child's face. Yet too often we must face another family's sorrow, whose greatest gift and joy will not be home tomorrow. One split-second difference one way or the other, and a family of 4 would still have each other. Many who have heard feel anger towards God today. Why would He give such gifts only to take them away? My heart feels heavy, though it hasn't felt the toll. A mother's words of strength say, God is in control. She speaks this inspiration after the greatest loss times 2, a boy not quite 5, and a baby girl almost brand new. Her statements make me wonder, perhaps God had some reason to call His children home from this earth's cold winter season. But why? What reason could there possibly be for those to drive carelessly to finally see? Or maybe for a million parents to hear the story and weep and never again forget to say, I love you, before they sleep. A child's untried faith carried them swiftly through the gate, for they never got a chance to learn, to doubt, rebel, or hate. Perhaps the Lord has rescued them from the sorrows we now face. They will never have pain, fear, nor loss now that they're in God's place. Those who mourn must patiently wait to once again hear their laughter, but a lifetime is but a glimpse in a time when compared to ever after. And while they wait for you to come, be glad that each is with the other. Perhaps that is why a baby and her loving brother were carried home together. I have never met this woman. I still have never met this woman, and she wrote that poem. I think it speaks volumes. So, how did Jake and Lauren die? What happened? Before I give you some of the details, the day of the crash and the morning after, I was filled with fear. Oh my gosh, I'm going to forget them. I don't know what they look like, how they sound, what happened. So I took to the computer and I wrote down their last 24 hours. It's probably about 9 or 10 pages of what we did starting on Thursday night until Friday afternoon. I read that at their funeral as their eulogy. Just so if people didn't know how just, quote, normal, a family of 4, just getting up and going to school and going to church and playing and can really be taken away. So I will fast forward to that Friday afternoon when we're at our friend's house and we were visiting them in Port Washington. My friend had just had a baby just a few months after Lauren, and we were visiting with them. And we had lunch, and it was a really sunny, warm day, and we were getting back in the car, and we were buckling up, and we're headed south on 43. I'm in the car. Lauren's in the back seat. Again, she's 5 months, and she's faced backwards, so I have a mirror in my back window so I can look in my rearview mirror and see her. Jake is in the back passenger side, buckled in. And we're driving down the road and we're counting trucks. Mom, let's count some trucks. Great. So we start counting 1, 2. We get to about 36, 37. He goes, Mom, I'm getting kind of tired. I'm going to take a rest. I said, okay, that sounds great. The next thing I know, I look ahead of me, and I see a car crossing the road, probably about a quarter of a mile up the road. I look in my rearview mirror if I can see Jake, and I look to the side of me, and I think he's fallen asleep. The next thing I know, this car is now in my lane, going north in the southbound lane, and I need to make a decision. I'm passing Mequon Road, and I'm just passing the on-ramp, and there are cars coming on, and I can't get over. And the next thing I have to decide is, do I play chicken? Do I stay in my lane? Do I try to brush the car over next to me? I'm going to take the car in the ditch and try to avoid the man coming at me and causing another accident. The next thing I know, I wake up and I can't move. I open my eyes. I try to look in my rearview mirror. I don't have a back window, so I can't see. I try to turn my head as best as I can to the right. Half of Jake's skull is all cut open. And I know it's not good. And 2 seconds later, there's a man at my window. I said, please, I have kids in the back. Please help me. We're trying to help you, ma'am. We're trying. All I could say was, oh my God, oh my God. I couldn't get out of the car. Again, I couldn't move. The next thing I know, they get me out of the car. I see Jake on the side of the road, and they're trying to tend to him. They have little Lauren on the other side on the grass, and they say, who do you need to call? And I said, I need to call my husband. And I called my husband, and I go to reach for my phone, and of course it's in pieces. The sheriff dials the number, and I say, we've been in an accident, and they're tending to the kids, and that's all I told him. And I then handed the phone to the officer, and he's going to tell him how to get to St. Mary's, Ozaki. As I got in the ambulance and I'm riding with Lauren, I know they're not well. And the driver says to me, if you want to donate their organs, you need to let the hospital know. And I said yes, and if I can help someone else at this time, absolutely. So as we get to St. Mary's, if you've ever been in a crash where there's been a fatality and you get to the hospital, there's usually a social worker there to greet you. I had 2 of them. They rushed me off to a room and asked that I sit down and be patient and wait. I'm like, I just want to be with my kids. I know they're not well. Can I please just go see them? They went out and came back in, and I was able to go in and see Jake. And they now have his head bandaged up, and he's lying there with one of his boots on and his jeans on and a tube down his throat. And I'm just shaking my head in disbelief. And at that time, the doctor comes in and said that he was probably killed instantly. And to this day, this brings me comfort because he didn't suffer and he didn't cry. So I'm grateful for that. I asked how Lauren was doing, and they said that she had a pulse but no heartbeat, and they were breathing for her. And they wanted to try a procedure again over at Children's Hospital, so they radioed for Flight for Life. So I'm walking in between Jake and Lauren's rooms, and I'm over seeing Lauren, and my husband arrived, and I could hear his voice, and he walked in, and of course he's shocked because, again, I just said that they were tending to the kids, and the only thing that I could say was he didn't suffer. I don't know if that brought much comfort to him. Of course, I felt lost. I couldn't save the kids. I just had to tell my husband that his son was dead. If he didn't figure that out already, of course. But I then had to tell him that they're working on Lauren, and they want to take her over to Children's, and they need one of us to go over with her. And he said, you go ahead. We had called a friend to make arrangements to get him over there, and he just wanted to be with his little buddy because they were buddies. So we're on our way over to Children's Hospital. I'm in the helicopter, and I can hear them talking about Lauren's vitals and such. And I know that she's not well. And again, I said to the helicopter driver that if they can use her organs, they have my permission if they can radio ahead if she hasn't lost too much oxygen. So we get over to Children's and we have to wait, and again, I get there and then go with the social workers and who do you need to call, and I called my pastor, and again, they were trying to do as much they could with Lauren. And then the doctor came out and said they've done everything that they can, and she's not responding to the reaction, and so they're still pumping for her. So then I had to make the decision, do I let her go, or do I wait for my husband to arrive and let her go? They couldn't use her organs because she lost too much oxygen. And then they asked if I'd like to be there when she stopped breathing. And I said yes, and as I walked into a room filled with, seemed like 20 to 30 people standing in yellow scrubs, they all were just silent. And I walked in, and the nurse said, it's okay, you can come up, you can touch her, she can hear you. And as I walked up to the table, I rubbed her little head, like I always did. And I said, I love you, Lauren. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. It's okay. Go home and be with your brother. As the people cleared out of the room, they asked if I'd like to hold her. And of course I said yes. And as I sat holding her, she was very warm because they had her in a heating pad, and they had her all cleaned up. Now, mind you, she's only 6 months old, and she was 6 weeks early, so she was pretty tiny. So she was probably only 8 pounds. But I literally know where the phrase dead weight now comes from. She felt like she was 100 pounds, and she's just this tiny little thing, as you can see in the pictures. I was able to hold her, and they could see how uncomfortable I was, and they asked if I could go into a room, and then they would clean her up, and they would bring her to me. And they did that. They cleaned her up, and she looked like a little porcelain doll. They had her holding a little teddy bear. And as I'm sitting in the rocking chair, talking to my pastor, just holding my dead baby, my husband walks in. And again, shaking his head in disbelief, and I said, do you want to hold her? And of course, there are more things that happened after that. That was the worst day of my life. The second worst day of my life was the next day, when I had to plan the funeral for my 2 kids. I had to make funeral arrangements, I had to pick out flowers, I had to pick out what they were going to be buried in. Through our faith in God and the support of our families and friends, we were able to create a new sense of normal. But if Mr. Stenzel hadn't made that bad choice, Jake and Lauren would still be here today. So again, the theme, be safe, please make the right choices, and please remember Jake and Lauren. Thank you.